In this video, we are going to begin working on the roof assemblies. I would like to have you make a change to the floor system that we created for the roof structure of the mass timber. I'm thinking it's going to be easier for us to add the additional layers of the roof on top of the structural layer as a separate element. So what you need to do would be to select that top layer, which should be called 3-layer CLT and rigid insulation. Edit the type. I'm going to rename it. I'm going to remove the rigid insulation from that. And down here's my new name. And then I'm going to go to edit, and I'm going to click on that rigid insulation and delete it. Okay, and say okay. Apply and okay. All right, now I'm going to go to my section looking north, and you can see the top of those panels, those CLT panels, are right up to the level 3. Now what I'm going to need to do is raise up the other elements so that they are the same dimension below that. So if you recall, we made them each 1 3/8. So the total for that should be 4 1/8. Let's measure that again. Measure, click here, snap overrides to perpendicular. This lower, yeah, 4 1/8. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is go to the 3D view. And I'm going to click on that CLT layer. I'm going to right click and I'm going to hide that in the view so I can get a better look at what I'm going to be changing. So I'll just go along and select all of these. And I can pick the girders at the same time. So I'm going to change them to -4.125 inches. Be sure to put inches. And then I'll Control-C and copy clip that. I want the start and the end to be changed. Okay, now they've all been raised, and all I got to do now is raise the column. So sometimes you can use the technique of clicking one object and selecting all instances. Now, we're going to raise all of them in this project. So I could do either what's visible or all of them in the entire project. And it will select them all. Now, we didn't do that with the beams and girders because it would have also included the level 2 ones, and we didn't want to move those. So that's why I kind of went one by one and picked them. Okay, so I'm going to put -4.125 inches into that, and you can see that they've all been raised up. Okay, now if I want to turn back on that layer that I turned off, I'm going to reveal hidden elements by going down to the bottom status bar there. I'll click on that floor, right click, and unhide elements in the view. Make sure you click it. Right click, unhide elements in the view, and then you can turn it back on so they'll come back on. Okay, so section looking north. So everything is kind of fitting together as they should. Now what I'm going to do is add second floor assembly on top of my CLT panels. Are there other ways of doing this? Probably. Are there better approaches in terms of working within the software? Yes, perhaps, but we're really mostly interested in how these details are going to look. So we will make lots of revisions to those as we develop the details. All right, so I'm going to go to level 3. And this is where I'm going to add a roof assembly. So we'll add them to all of these structures, but I'm going to start with this one down here, the CTL structure, or rather the mass timber structure. Okay, so we have that CLT panel floor right here. So I've got that selected just to show you the outline. What I'm going to do is go to architecture floor and architectural floor. I'm going to start with another generic floor. I'll go with this generic number 8, or 8 inches rather, and click on edit type. And I'm going to duplicate the floor, and I'm going to call this one roof insulation. And I'll assign a thickness to it of 6.5 inches. So I'll actually put that in the title here. And then when I go to edit structure, now technically this is not a structural layer, but we have to have one for every floor assembly. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of a workaround here. I'm going to look for a material called rigid insulation, kind of like what we did before. Say okay, and I'm going to add 6.5 inches of insulation. And I'm also going to check this box called variable, because we're going to taper this assembly, but we don't want the bottom of it to be tapered. We want the bottom to be horizontal, only the top to be tapered. All right, so now I'm going to click on OK. And OK. Right now I'm going to make a boundary, and I'm just going to trace the level below, or the floor assembly below, and click. Okay, and then I'll check the box. All right, now it's going to tell me that the highlighted floors overlap. Let's take a look at that in the section looking north. And what we're going to do for that is change it to be 6.5 inches so it sits on top. Okay. So here we have this very thick assembly of insulation. It's going to taper down to where drains will be located. And based on our study of R values, we're going to make the insulation 4 inches thick at those drain locations, and then it will taper up. So some areas of the roof will actually have a higher R value than others. Right. How do we pitch the roof? Let's go to level 3 again. And I'm going to do something called adding a split line. Now, could you get one drain in for this entire roof? Yes. I think it's a good idea to have more than one in case there's a problem with the one drain. You have backup. Sometimes we detail something called a scupper that basically sends the water. If it gets to a certain height on the roof, it will spill it out around the perimeter. There's a number of different ways of doing it. You can also do an overflow drain. But what I'm going to show you how to do is how to split a roof so that you can have 2 areas that include the drains. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll add a split line right down the middle. From there to there. Okay. Now there's basically 2 areas of the roof, and we'll put one drain on one side and another drain on the other side. Now, before I do that, I'm going to click on the modified tool, and so I can leave that. And as I hover over that floor assembly, you can see there's now a sort of split down the middle of it. But the reason that I wanted to pause for a moment is I'm going to go to the level 2 ceiling plans. Okay, now you need to decide where to put the drains. Some locations that are just not possible. One of them is in the very middle of the roof because we have a column there. So those drains are going to go through the roof assembly, and then they'll turn through a pipe horizontally, make their way to the exterior wall, and then drop down. So each one of these technically could be in a different location. You know, when I do this waffle slab, for example, you know, I can't put it in this thickened area. I would want to come down in one of the voids here. But when you place the drain, you just want to have a sense of where the structure is. You don't want to come down directly on top of a joist or a girder. You need to come through one of the panels. So let's see here. These are 6.5 feet apart. I could put one drain, let's say, right here, maybe centered between the two. So that would be, since this is 25 feet across, that would be 12.5 feet from the center line, and it would be 8 feet. This is 8 feet 4 inches. I could make it, if I wanted to be exactly in the middle, I could put it at 4 feet, 4 feet 2 inches. So that would come down, and again, it would turn somewhere and make its way to the exterior walls. So I'm going to go back now to my level 3. And I'm going to click on that floor, and I'm going to add a point. Okay. So I'll start with my point being at the very middle here. And then I'll move it. Oops. Get that in there. Now what I'm going to do, actually, I need to do another step here. Let's click on here. Modify sub-elements. There's the one I just added. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to move it 12.5 feet over. And I'll move it again 4 feet 2 inches up. Okay, so that drain should be directly in the middle between those two framing members. Okay. Now I'll click on modify, and I have that one drain here. Okay. Now another thing that I need to do, I'm going to click on that again, and I'm going to modify the sub element. I'm going to select that. I need to drop it down by 2.5 inches. All right, because again, I'm going to have this taper, and I've calculated that I can do a 30-foot pitch at 1/4 inch per foot. That's where that 6.5 inches is coming from, minus 2.5 inches. Right, and then what I'm going to do is add another drain. Now I could put it in the same location across here. Maybe I want it to be symmetrical about the diagonal. Anyway, you have some leeway on where you add these. I'll put this one here. I'm going to change its elevation while I'm in here to minus 2.5 inches. And then I'm going to move it. Oops, a bit wonky. Modify sub elements. I'm going to toggle through them until I can select it, and then I'm going to move it. Let's try that again. Click on it, modify sub elements. Tab till you can select it, move, give it 12.5 feet. And then I'll move it again 4 feet 2 inches down. Okay. Now, question is, why are we getting that line across top here? Let's take a look at what's happening in the section and see if we can't figure out what the problem is. All right, my section probably is too far back to be able to see what's happening there. I'm going to look at it in 3D. See, do we have a pitch? Okay, it's creating a high point. Somehow my split did not register. So I think for some reason that split line did not save in there. So I'm going to add that split line again. There we go. And you see that diagonal line just disappeared. So when I click on modify, everything looks okay. So that's how these should look. And again, if you go into your 3D view, you should be able to see that there's this little taper that's happening. And again, this is a pitch that is going from a high point around the edge to a middle point. Now, technically, when we use a 1/4 inch per foot insulation, the graphic for the top, if drawn accurately, would produce 45-degree angles coming from these drains. So, you know, the sort of convention of drawing it, you often see like just a rectangle, even though if this is the same slope here, here, and here, we really would have 1/4 in it. We would really have 45-degree angles if the slope is constant to draw it truly how it would be. This is really just defining like the areas and the direction of the pitch. All right, for the hollow core slabs, we're going to need to add another inch of insulation to this assembly, again, based on the required R values for a roof. So I'm going to go to architecture for architectural and edit type. And I'm basically going to make a duplicate, and this one will be called 7.5. And I'll adjust the thickness 7.5 inches and say okay, and okay again. And so the process is the same. I'm going to snap to the corners of the hollow core slabs. That outer square is the slab, the concrete slab below. And click on the check mark. Okay, I get that same message, and so I will go to my section, looking north, and you can see there's the overlap. So I'm going to go and change this to 7.5 inches. Okay, so now it's sitting on top. And I'll go back to level 3 and start working on creating the same condition. Now, for this one, let's take a look at our ceiling plan, level 2. I have a member that's crossing at the middle, but I could basically put my drain anywhere, you know, above or below those. So I'll start off with a split line in the same location as I had done with the first one. Okay. And I'll tab through this so there the split line is appearing. And then I will tab through again. And I will add a point. I'm going to kind of repeat the same process at a point to the center here, and then I'll move it to add, modify sub-elements, pick that. This one is also going to be minus 2.5 inches. And I'll move it over 12.5 feet. And then there's nothing really restricting me from where it is located from here. I'll just move it over 2 feet. And I'll add another point at the middle. And I will go through the same process of moving it. Modify subproperties. Get move. Go 1 feet. Move it 1, 2 feet down. Again, it didn't accept my split line, so let's add another split line here. Maybe I need to do the drains first. So that one's ready. All right, for this one here, one thing that we don't have yet is the metal deck. So I'm going to need to create a floor. So for this one, we are going to actually keep the metal deck with the insulation. So because I can't get a floor assembly as thin as 1.5. So basically what I'm going to do is duplicate it, and I'm going to call this one rigid insulation on metal deck. On 1.5 inch metal deck, so okay, and then edit. And with this one, let's see what happens when I change this to rigid insulation. Okay. And my thickness is going to be similar to the one for the precast hollow core slabs. It's going to be a total of, actually we need to add the deck plus the rigid insulation. So this one will have a total thickness of 9 inches. So 7.5 plus the 1.5 inch metal deck. And let's see here, it lets me do this thermal insulation layer. I can change the, right, we're going to try this with the variable set to the rigid insulation layer. See if it lets us keep it flat on the bottom. Right, and okay. And I'll go ahead and make a rectangle or a square rather. And click on the check mark. Save my project. All right, now let's take a look at the section and see where it's placed. Okay, I'm going to move it up. So I've got a 9 inch assembly minus the 1.5 inches for the metal deck. So we will make that 7.5 inches. So now the metal deck is sitting on top of the joist. And we will try to add our drains to the top of that one. Let's go take a look at the ceiling plan, level 2. So for this one, I do have some limitations. See, I think these joists are spaced every 5 feet. So maybe I'll put a drain at 2.5 feet. So it's centered this way. So I'm going to go to level 3. And I'll try adding the point first this time. Place it here. It's my elevation is going to be minus 2.5 inches. And then I'll try moving it. Okay. Modify sub-elements, click on that. Try and move it 12.5 feet. Move it again, 2.5 feet. I'll try to add another one here. And use the move tool. There's modify sub-elements. Pick that up. Drop it again to minus 2.5 inches. And then move it. 12 feet. Move it again down 2.5 feet. And let's see what happens. I might change this one. Drop that one down. That's where I'm getting the weird geometry. And now let's add that split line right across the middle. Now it looks like the others. Click on modify, and that should complete that one. I have one more to do. This one will be a similar roof to the one on the precast. The concrete is not very good at providing R value. So I've got some cavity walls here. My roof assembly is going to be on top of the waffle slab. Let me go to my section here and take a look at that. And so the roof will sit inside this concrete block. So let's go to level 3. And I'm going to go to architecture floor. I do an architectural floor. This one is going to be roof insulation. It'll be the thicker one. And I'll make a rectangle on the inside there. And here. Okay, now I can see my waffle slab here, so I have some sense of where my drain could go. But basically, I think I want to put it in one of those waffle slabs, 1, 5, and 5/8. It'll be 1, 5, and 5/8, and if I center it, I think it should fall in one of those waffle slabs. So we'll give it a try. Okay. Would you like the walls to go to the floor level? Let's say don't attach. And now let me go to my section. You'll probably need to raise it up. Yes, click on it. This one will be 7.5 inches. And go back to 3. And we'll begin to add some content here, add points. Okay, so I was able to add a point, but for some reason it wouldn't let me add it into the core. So I'm going to try to I'm going to tab through here until I can get the, and I'll modify the subpoints. I'll click on that. It's going to have the same minus 2.5 inch drop. And I will start to move it. See, I can use the snap overrides here. Put it on the column. And let's try to move it again. Not sure why it wouldn't let me place it directly. And now what I'll do is keep moving it to the position that I want it to. So 12.5 feet. And let's move it up 1 foot 5, and I think it was 5/8. Same thing as 5.625. And I'll add another one. Presuming it's not going to let me put it where I want to. So let's edit, modify sub-elements, put it after copper height, almost 2.5 inches. And then I'll start moving it around. Yeah, overrides, perpendicular. And move it again. This is a little bit annoying here. And then I can move it into the position that I wanted, 12.5 inches. Repeat rather, and one more move. Again, 1 foot 5.625. And let's add that split line down the middle. So we have two separate areas pitching through drains. Out of that. Okay, those are the 4 roof structures. You know, you may not be able to see very much from the large section, but if you go to section or A201, you'll see a little bit of the taper happening. Our steel structure, so it is sitting on top of the metal deck. A precast structure sitting on top of the hollow core slabs, and the mass timber structure, there it is on top of those CLT panels.